It was June of 2010. Inside the script's National Spelling Bee, bright young minds aged just 8 to 15 wrestled with words like brachydactylus and legulanian. But outside the venue, a different struggle was unfolding. A group of passionate protesters had gathered, calling for a radical reform of English spelling. And honestly, they weren't alone. For centuries, reformers have argued that English spelling is anything but intuitive. The irregularities are legendary. Here's a classic example. Take the GH from enough, the O from women, and the TI from action. Combine them and bizarrely, you might argue that GHOTI spells fish. So, how did we get here? To understand that, we need to rewind the clock over 1,500 years back. English began with a mix of old Germanic dialects brought by tribes invading the British Isles. Over time, their languages merged into what we now call Old English. Around 600 CE, Roman missionaries arrived and began writing it down using the Latin alphabet. But they had a problem. Latin didn't account for all the sounds in Old English. So they borrowed a few Germanic runes to fill in the gaps. Then came 1066, the Norman invasion. Suddenly French became the language of royalty, power, and prestige. Yet English remained the everyday language of the people. As generations passed, even the descendants of the French conquerors adopted English, though not without leaving a heavy French imprint on vocabulary. Meanwhile, Latin lingered in the background through the church and academia. By the mid-1400s, English writing was back in fashion, but there were no real rules. Writers pulled from French, Latin, and their own dialects, resulting in a tangled web of spelling and grammar. And just when things couldn't get more chaotic, the printing press arrived in England in 1476. Press workers, some of whom weren't native English speakers, were handed manuscripts filled with inconsistent spellings. Without a standardized system, they often relied on what they saw or knew, preserving a patchwork of spellings that would soon become permanent. Take the word dough. It was once spelled dach, with a strong guttural sound at the end. But Latin script had no clean way to represent it, so it became GH. Eventually, English speakers softened or dropped that harsh sound altogether. So now, dough and tough, which share the same letters, sound nothing alike. The printing press froze these quirks in time, and it didn't stop with GH. Silent letters crept into words like knife, gnat, and wrong, echoes of ancient pronunciations long faded. But as spelling solidified, pronunciation continued to evolve. Enter the Great Vowel Shift. Between the 14th and 18th centuries, English speakers dramatically changed how they pronounced vowels. Words like bought shifted to boat, and boot, once pronounced like boat, moved to its current high U sound. Words that already had that high U became diphthongs, morphing hus into house, and so on. Why did this massive shift happen? No one really knows. What we do know is that the impact varied depending on the surrounding sounds in each word. Take tough, through, and dough. They once sounded like toe, thrush, and da. Thanks to a swirl of vowel shifts and French spelling influences, they ended up looking alike, but sounding completely different. And this, right here, is why English can feel like a puzzle with mismatched pieces, especially for non-native learners. What we're left with is a language shaped by conquests, printing errors, vowel shifts, and centuries of improvisation. It's confusing, yes, but it's also a fascinating window into the messy, marvelous evolution of communication. And in that messiness lies the magic.